Very interesting information. I don't know who this guy is. He's got over 250,000 followers on X, and he does bring all the receipts showing evidence of most of everything he says.
The Trump administration's newly launched chemicals task force isn't wasting time. Against the mockery of the mainstream and the silence of captured institutions, they've already uncovered a key source behind the chemical assault raining down on our cities. Insiders are now confirming rogue chemtrails operations have been running out of shadowy sub-departments within the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. These units are being dismantled as we speak. And the deep state players responsible? They're on the radar, and losing their jobs is going to be the least of their concerns. They're about to face justice. But here's the thing. That's just the beginning. Because what the task force found next goes deeper and darker, and involves foreign governments, weaponized weather systems, and a decades-old plan to control the minds and bodies of an entire population. Stay with us, because what we'll be revealing will make you look at the sky with very different eyes. Before we dive in, join the TPV free speech community over on Soju. Soju is a digital space where ideas and information can take place without any annoying algorithms or restrictive rules getting in the way of free expression. If chemtrails are just a conspiracy theory, a fantasy cooked up by tinfoil hat lunatics, then why are more than half of Americans actively trying to stop them? You don't get mass public outcry over something that isn't real. You don't get whistleblowers, independent lab results, and government task forces over nothing. You get that kind of resistance when people know deep down that something is wrong, very wrong. That the skies aren't natural anymore, that we're being sprayed and lied to. So the real question isn't if chemtrails are real, it's why are they so desperate to convince you they're not? Last week, we broke the story before CNN, before Fox, before anyone in the mainstream even dared to whisper it. We told you that President Trump, after a direct conversation with RFK Jr., had authorized an internal chemtrails task force to investigate what's really being sprayed over American skies. The doubters laughed, the media scoffed, and even some so-called experts in the alternative space told us we were reaching. Well, who's laughing now? Because now even CNN, yes, that CNN, is reporting that the Trump administration has begun dismantling the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's research arm, shutting down weather and climate labs across the country. Turns out the so-called conspiracy theorists were right again. And as usual, the people's voice had the scoop weeks before the mainstream were forced to change their narrative, as RFK's former running mate Nicole Shanahan confirmed.
They have identified particles, materials, inputs that are being used for geoengineering and weather modification through aerosol injection that actually are harmful to human health and our ecosystem health as well. So natural systems such as soil, water, and air are being impacted negatively. And I do know that HHS is in the process of putting together a team to investigate this. Much is unknown. Some is known. We do know that cloud seeding does exist. We do know that counties throughout the United States have active contracts with private companies. I do know the Gates Foundation is involved in geoengineering. I do know Open Philanthropy is involved in geoengineering. I know that the World Economic Forum has pushed it, and several universities are pushing for it.
More from Nicole later, but first, what's going on behind the scenes now? According to the Trump administration, the activities of NOAA are misaligned with the expressed will of the American people. After years of torment under these toxic chemtrail webs choking our skies, that's the understatement of the decade. We've been battered. Our health, our homes, our hope, by these chemtrails and fogs. And yet, the mainstream is still hitting snooze on the truth, despite all the evidence that we are under attack. But it's not enough to just close down these government dens pumping those chemtrail toxins into our skies. We need blood on the table justice. This is where the news gets even better. Sources inside the task force are confirming that the feds are seizing classified data, physical evidence, and internal comms tied directly to the chemtrails programs. This isn't just a slap on the wrist. This is a full-blown deep state chemtrails purge. The goal? Total exposure, total accountability, and the total dismantling of the system that's been silently poisoning our air, our soil, and our minds for decades.
Look at this. What the hell is going on? Are you kidding me? How dare you? How dare you?
But here's what the mainstream isn't telling you. We've uncovered new intel that points to foreign actors, bioengineering corporations, and even retired military officials involved in a decades-long weather warfare and population control agenda. The weird unnatural fogs that blanketed US and European cities for months, they weren't weather anomalies. They were part of the agenda. A test run, a rollout, a conditioning phase. And now we're seeing the next phase. Pink and yellow dust settling across American towns and rural areas alike. It's not pollen, it's not sand, and it sure as hell isn't harmless. Independent labs are already testing samples, and the early results? Devastating. The chemical signature of this dust reads like a Cold War weapons manual. Barium, strontium, aluminium, lead, cadmium, and traces of Ba-137, a radioactive isotope tied to nuclear fallout. Let me say that again. This is nuclear transmutation residue. We showed the early data to a former radiation safety officer who worked cleanup at Chernobyl, and you know what he said? He said that if this dust was falling in Pripyat, we'd call for an immediate zone lockdown. Let that sink in. So no, it's not just some wild theory anymore. We are being dusted, we are being conditioned. And the question we all need to be asking now is simple. Why? And more importantly, what can we do to stop it? The deep state are at war with the Trump administration. In response to Trump's promise to usher in a new golden age, the globalists have begun wrecking the markets and crashing the global economy. That's why top billionaires around the world have already dumped over $133 billion in stocks. Back in the 90s, whispers of chemtrails exploded after a shady Air Force report, Weather as a Force Multiplier, was leaked, complete with a sinister plot to control the weather, manipulate populations, and own the skies by 2025. The feds called it fiction, but by 99, folks like Art Bell were blasting it on the airwaves, explaining that jets were spraying us with poisonous particulates and God knows what else. The EPA, FAA, and NASA, they scrambled to describe the phenomenon as contrails. But the denials only fueled the fire. Planes leaving condensation trails don't switch on and off like the chemtrails planes we've all seen. Cloud seeding experiments from the 40s. Cold War chemical tests on civilians. Uncle Sam's got a rap sheet a mile long. And now, the chemtrails cover-up is playing out just like the COVID vaccine scam. Same playbook, different delivery method. First, they deny it exists. Then when the pressure mounts and the evidence becomes undeniable, they change the language. Oh, it's not chemtrails, it's geoengineering. A shiny new label slapped on a decades-old crime. And just like with the jab, the message is the same. Don't ask questions, don't look too closely, just trust us. It's safe and effective. They want us to believe they're spraying the sky to help us fight climate change, to cool the planet, to save humanity. Meanwhile, cancer rates are spiking, cognitive disorders are rising, and the skies look nothing like they did 20 years ago. They've admitted the spraying, they've admitted the research, but now they're telling us, don't look under the hood, because what's under there isn't climate control, it's population control. But as Nicole Shanahan points out, the people have woken up and justice will be served.
Media line, again, is geoengineering is real, but chemtrails are not. That defies logic. They say out of pocket, we know that there's no harmful effects when we knew from Operation Popeye in Vietnam that it was lead iodide. How do we know? We lack the information. So what is your take on the utter lack of curiosity of the corporate media and their out of turn announcement that this is fine, nothing to see here?
I think it reminds all of us of the statement around the mRNA vaccines being safe and effective. Don't look under the hood. Don't listen to these conspiratorial voices. And in fact, there is quite a bit of active censorship or media manipulation that really deters individuals from furthering their inquiries and curiosity as to what's actually at play. And, you know, I think that playbook of really using these derogatory attacks on qualified inquiries to shut them up. I mean, that reminds us all of what it felt like during those COVID lockdowns. And so there's a lot of parallels to be drawn between the COVID-19 era and what's happening today, which is this Overton window being blown wide open on the issue of geoengineering, people coming forward with evidence that is raising concern, real red flags about the contents of what is being used for weather modification, the lack of regulatory oversight, the lack of disclosure to the public, the lack of public consent. And here we are. Here we are at what I think is the beginning of this global conversation around geoengineering and fact finding and going up against, we don't really know what right now. Is this, you know, I do know the Gates Foundation is involved in geoengineering. I do know Open Philanthropy is involved in geoengineering. I know that the World Economic Forum has pushed it and several universities are pushing for it. And sure, that's fine. But we also deserve, as the people, a full disclosure process and referendum opportunity to opine.
We also deserve justice. Justice for the crimes they've committed against us. Justice for the lives they've ruined, the families they've poisoned, the children breathing in the toxins they never consented to. All while we were mocked, gaslit, and silenced for asking the most basic of questions. What are they spraying, and why? For decades, they told us it was a myth. Now, with the truth unraveling, they want a free pass. Not this time. Nicole Shanahan said it clearly in her diplomatic style. She named names. Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum, and the shadowy coalition of unelected technocrats who think they have the right to play God with our skies, our DNA, and our future. Let's start there. Let's ask why Gates has poured millions into atmospheric spraying experiments through Harvard and other research institutions. Let's ask why the WEF keeps pushing sky modification as a solution to climate change, without a single vote, without a shred of transparency. Let's ask who profits from the endless contracts, the patents, the cleanup, and the damage control. And most of all, let's ask why so many of the people involved in these operations never live under the skies they're spraying. Because the truth is out, the excuses are gone, and the era of accountability is just beginning.